Welcome into another late night edition of the Real _G Warner. I am going through the Serie A preseason futures, all that sort of stuff on this episode. Going to start at the bottom of the table, work its way all the way to the top, and get through, find an ultimate best bet end of show. You can see that in 1 minute version at the Real _G Warner on Instagram and on YouTube. If you want to stick with this podcast and watch for another season, I think this is year 5. Go to Betting the Pitch on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Same if you want to watch on YouTube, you can see my beautiful kits. I got one today, Christian Pulisic, if you see it on the back. There we go, Captain America, and my Roma scarf that was supposed to be thrown out, but I didn't realize that from a trip to Italy last year. Don't have a Euro soccer trip on the schedule yet. Disappointing, but maybe we'll find one later in the season. Thanks, of course, to all you following me on Twitter at the Real _G Warner. The same thing on Patreon, patreon.com/Real_G Warner. The best spot for all my plays, scenes, write-ups across all sports. So we're going to go through Italy today. Talk about where I expect teams to move, talk about futures, and then the season starts, Giornata 1, whatever that is, in Uno, maybe, in Italian. We'll be starting Saturday, August 17th, so that's approaching very rapidly as this very late in Dallas, Texas. But I will start with the lowest squad value at 58 million euros, a lot better than some of the other leagues we've covered. English Premier League done, Spanish La Liga done, French League done. You can check all those three on the various podcast platforms. We'll be doing the German Bundesliga next week because they start with the DFB Pokal, a lot of big clubs against little ones. So I'm not sure that there's a huge rush for the futures there. With that said, I'll start with Empoli, who had one of the most incredible staying ups of any team across Europe last season. 58 million euros in a team that's been in the league for a long time, nearly 59. Weird to see them the lowest valuation, but I think it makes sense. Haven't ever really had a lot of money and probably should have been relegated last year. They're not the favorite to be relegated. That is Venezia, which we'll get to in a second. But Empoli minus 115 to be one of the teams going down to Serie B. So what have they done? Roberto De Verza, appointed July 2nd, 2024. New manager, has been all over Italy for a long time. Definitely a familiar face. And they've sold 5 million euros worth of players and bought none. Not a great sign. They did transfer or sold Sebastiano Luperto, a center back, to Cagliari for 3.5 million euros. Samuele Angori has left for Pisa, but I don't know his name. And then in terms of what they've brought in is a lot of loan players. Lorenzo Colombo, a center forward from Milan, the kid I'm wearing today. Sebastiano Esposito from Inter Milan, other side, or I guess same stadium. Curva Nord versus Curva Sud, I guess the biggest ones there. Mattia Vitti, a center back on loan from Nice. I want to say was here before. And then Ola Solbakken on loan from Roma. So clearly Empoli are building without spending money, but they are building via loan. Never really a great sign. New manager, we'll see how that turns. A very defensive side a couple of years ago, and then it was kind of amazing they stayed up with some late goals, which I think really crushed a couple of bets that I had on the last match day. But you live and you learn, and hopefully that does not happen again. In terms of movement, I mean, some of the names coming in, we'll see how they end up fitting into the future. This squad honestly looked dead last year, so I'm surprised that it wasn't, but it wasn't, and they're still here. Move next to Venezia. They're worth nearly 60 million euros, about 1.5 or just 1 million euro, I guess, more than, or 1 million euros more than Empoli. Venezia with an American owner, Duncan Niederauer, I believe, from New York Stock Exchange fame. And Venezia, newly promoted, coming up. Welcome back. You'll certainly see them with some new kits out there for sure. Eusebio Di Francesco, appointed June 26th. And again, another new manager and another Serie A veteran. In terms of what they've done, they've spent 8 million euros, more than Empoli, that's for sure. And they've only brought in 300K. So that's a good sign. Top departure is Mikhail Cuisance, who's left for Hertha BSC in the German Bundesliga, former player for Bayern München, and others. Other names I don't really recognize. Denis Cheryshev, interesting to see that Russian name. Top departure, it looks like, on transfer market. In terms of rivals, we have Antonio Raimondo from Bologna. Don't know him, on loan. Alfred Duncan, free transfer from Fiorentina. Definitely a name to know in midfield. Gaetana Oristanio from Inter. They spent 4 million euros for number 10. That's a lot of money. Filip Stankovic on loan from Inter Milan. And Giorgio Altare for 1 million euros from Cagliari. And I'll try not to talk like that in Italian, but I guess it's that sort of podcast. Anyway, I think Venezia, we'll see what happens. They going to be tough to stay in the league when you get promoted. Poyan Paulo, also Finn, formerly of Union Berlin, and I want to say Bayer Leverkusen as well. Certainly know that name, but he's injured. Other names that are showing up on here that are names I know. Chirnagoy, of course, one of the hardest names to pronounce ever. Probably the latest you see a vowel in any sort of word, 5 letters in. Duncan, maybe he'll play. I mean, I've looked at him and he certainly scored some goals that killed me in the past. We'll see how that looks moving forward. You see Haps on the team as well. I mean, it's not too far since they've been in the top league in Serie A, but Jesse Joronen, Finnish goalkeeper as well. So they've got a lot of Finns apparently, and international squad, that's for sure. They are most likely to be relegated though, minus 125, and I don't think I got a reason to disagree with that. Moving next to Hellas Verona with one of the most incredible escapes from relegation last season. Were awesome. A team I bet a lot down the stretch. They're worth nearly 64.5 million euros, just north of that. About 5 million more than Venezia, 6 million or so more than Empoli. But when I look at Verona, so they are plus 125 to really be relegated, certainly on the list of potentials. It was honestly incredible. They sold everything they could. Literally, they said anything you want to buy, it's for sale to try to cover some money. Paolo Zanetti, appointed in June. I guess he is their, next idea to try to stay up. We'll see how long he stays there. And in terms of what they've done, they've brought in 22.5 million euros, probably a lot from those January sales that had not been fully accounted for. And they've sold they spent almost 11 million euros. So that's something. Gone to Juventus is Juan Cabal, left back. Noslin to Lazio. Thomas Henry to Palermo. Kevin Lasagna, pasta guy. Very fast, but probably older now, so probably not a big deal there. But Cabal and Noslin were certainly important in them staying up. In terms of arrivals, Suat Serdar, who was already in from Hertha Berlin. Kasper Tengstedt from Benfica on loan, a center forward. Chachua, who was, I think, already there last season, 3 million euros, right back. Harui from Frosinone, who were one of the teams that went down in incredible fashion at the end of the season, for a central midfielder for 1.2 million euros. They spent a little, they sold a lot, that's for sure. And honestly, their I guess long-term type of signings are what kept them up, or maybe they're young players, and they've certainly moved on from a couple. I see Casanos coming in from Salernitana. Thomas Luslav was so awesome and looked good in Slovakian kit this summer as well. Lazovic still there. That's important, though he certainly looked a little bit less important down the stretch. Andres Duda is still there. I mean, they've got a lot of those players. Faraone played a big role down the stretch. Let's see. Magnani as well. Coppola. I mean, there's a lot. Montipo, the starting goalkeeper. So a lot of Hellas Verona has returned, and I feel like we'll see a lot from them, similar to what they did last season. We'll move next to Cagliari, the Islanders. They are plus 130, fourth most likely to be relegated. So it seems like, other than the Venezia and Empoli, we're following the values of these clubs. Cagliari have Davide Nicola as their manager, appointed in July. He is a relegation fighter, and someone you certainly want to start betting when he comes in January, usually. So we'll see how long he stays in the Cagliari position. In terms of what they've done in the transfer market, they have brought in 17 million euros and spent about 11. So good sign that they're doing some business as well. It looks like Serie A is spending much more than the other leagues covered so far. They lost Dosena, their center back, to Como, another team that just came up with very rich owners, apparently. Sulemana gone to Atalanta. Nandez gone. Giorgi Altare, don't know him. But in terms of arrivals, Dortea from Atalanta, Piccoli also on this one on loan from Atalanta, Luperto from Empoli, center back, could be important. And then Maccia Felici, I don't know that name. But in terms of what Cagliari have done, I mean, it looks like they have sold a center back that was important to them, certainly starting every match. And then I guess Sulemana probably was important, but I don't really remember that name very well. And Nandez was getting very old for sure. Brought in a right midfielder, a center forward, and a center back. So that is certainly something to take note of. They were the late goal masters last season, what kept them up. We'll see if they can do that again this year. Plus 130 be relegated. I'll move next to Parma. Parma are actually not next to Parma. We'll move next to Como, which are well down the list at plus 650 to be relegated. That's a long way. Looks like ninth most likely. That's saying something, but rich owners, I guess, will do that for you. So Lake Como, which I think for some reason I always knew about George Clooney going there. Manager, very familiar, Cesc Fabregas at 37 years old, appointed in July. In terms of what they've done in the transfer market for a newly promoted team, very wild to see them only taking in 3.7 million euros and spending nearly 41. Wow. In terms of departures, they lost a goalkeeper to Pisa for 2.5 million euros and a center back to Sassuolo, newly relegated, down to Serie B for 1.2 million. They brought in Rafael Varane on a free transfer from Manchester United. Wow. Dosena, who I just mentioned, Yannick Engelhardt, 8 million euros from Fortuna Dusseldorf, who just missed getting promoted in kind of embarrassing fashion. Gabriel Strefezza from Lecce for 5 million euros. Brought in Emil Odero from Sampdoria, but I feel like he was on loan at Inter. So there's been a lot of movement here. In terms of other names that we might know, Cutrone, Strefezza I've already mentioned. Simone Verde. There's been a lot made. Mazzitelli from Frosinone, who went down as well. There's been a lot made of these teams. We have Golden Liga here as well. Dosena, Varane. Varane's got an injury flag. Looks like knee issues, which probably. And then Pepe Reina, 41 years old, but he'll probably be backing up Odero. A lot to say about this Como team, newly promoted at 6.5 to 1, gigantic odds. I don't know necessarily if that seems like it's worth it because it's going to take a while, and we'll see what they get from an entirely new roster, it feels. But Dosena will be good at center back, and they certainly need that moving forward. We'll move up the train track to Monza, worth nearly 85 million euros. Como were just, I guess, 100,000 euros less in terms of squad value. Looks like Monza are 6 to 1 odds to be relegated. They've looked great in this competition. The big question was whether they could keep their manager, and they could not. Alessandro Nesta coming in, appointed July 1st. They have brought in 21.5 million euros and only spent 3. So they've lost Carlos Augusto to Inter, but he was there last year. Michele Di Gregorio on loan and probably will be bought then afterwards to Juventus. Andrea Copani to Fiorentina for 4 million loan fee. Those are all big loan fees, but certainly means some good players are leaving. Looks like a 10 position. Their starting goalkeeper, of course, and a left back who's really good for them, but they replaced fairly well, finishing where they did in the table last season. In terms of what they brought in, Daniel Maldini, free transfer, which is a very famous name in Serie A. Georgios Kyrikopoulos from Sassuolo for 3 million euros. It's a pretty big expenditure. He's been all over Italy for sure. Stefano Sensi, free transfer Inter. Omari Forson from Manchester United. Don't know him, but so they've done some business, that's for sure. We see Milan Juric, one of those sales at the deadline or transfer window in January from Hellas Verona. Danny Mota, Gianluca Caprari. I mean, there's some big names here, and they were really good. We're very aggressive, but we'll see what this new manager does compared to what they have in the past. And of course, they are replacing a goalkeeper, which does say something. Moving next to Parma Calcio, another team that were promoted, the Serie B champions, it looks. They're worth about 93 million euros, and Parma are plus 175 to be relegated. That's a lot. I think another American owner, I want to say Fabio Peccia, appointed in 2022, I think, when Parma went down, finally back up. They've not done as much business, but it seems like I do like squads that win the level below. I feel like that shows a lot about continuity, and especially because they've only sold 4.15 million euros worth of players and spent almost double that. So that's a good sign, I think, for staying in the league. What they've lost, center forward Gennaro Tutino for 2.5 million euros, Nako Juric to Real Valladolid in La Liga in Spain, 1.5 million euros. And they've brought in Zion Suzuki, a goalkeeper, for 7.5 million euros. That's a pretty big purchase from Centuriadense VV. I don't even know where that is. Never heard of that. Matteo Cancelleri, on loan from Lazio. He was, I think, at Empoli last season. Pontus Almqvist from Lecce. Emanuele Valeri from Frosinone, both free transfers. So maybe they've done some good business. I'm very curious because Parma are a very, very famous club in Italy. We'll see how that all goes. Other names that I'm not sure I know a ton of them, but it seems like they've done pretty well business-wise, and I'm very curious to see what they look like going forward. It looks like we do have a suspension to a right back somehow, even though they weren't in Serie A last season, but I guess, and it looks like, so they've got a 34-year-old keeper, a 23-year-old keeper worth very little money, and then a market value of 2.5 million euros for a Japanese international, 21 years old, Zion Suzuki, I just mentioned. So could be a big step up for the goalkeeper. Again, Parma plus 175 to be relegated, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seventh least or seventh lowest value out of 20 squad Serie A. Move next to Lecce, worth 93.2 million euros. And then there's a big, big jump to Genoa, but we'll get to them in a second. So Lecce, they were pretty impressive last year to me. Great home team, got great fan support traveling with the squad as well in the Puglia region, I believe, of Italy on the southeastern coast. Luca Gotti, still manager, appointed March 13th of last season, and honestly, a defensive mind that's done very well, I think. He has brought in 21.5 million euros in sales, only spent about 8. So that tells me this team's getting worse. We'll see. Martin Pongracic, who's not a great defender in the German Bundesliga, seemed to be okay at Lecce in Italy. Surprised, but he has moved to Fiorentina for 15 million euros. Sofrezza has gone to Como for 5. Alexis Blin, defensive midfielder, to Palermo for 1.5. Looks like Palermo's been spending a bunch. In terms of arrivals, Marcvinski, attacking midfield for 3 million euros from a club I don't recognize. Andy Pelmar, the center back from Clermont Foot, relegated, but a name certainly to know. Lassana Koulibaly, a central midfielder from Salernitana, for 1.8 million euros. That could mean something. Tete Morente from Elche in, I guess, the Segunda División in Spain. That could be something. And then they spent 2 million euros on Kielonda Gaspar, a center back. It looks like he's coming from a club, CF Estrella Amadora. I don't know where that is, but probably don't have enough time or interest to look at it. Lecce were, I thought, very impressive, deserved a lot better, had some good results at home. Falcone still in goal. That's important. Bashiroto, the farmer, giant, absolute giant, big guy, good in the air, very physical. Maybe we'll see some goals from him. I like seeing Dorgu as well, only 19 years old, but worth 12 million euros. He's probably their most valuable asset, I would think. I don't know if Lecce has got guys worth more than 12 million euros. No, nobody else. But Lecce currently plus 250 to be relegated. I like Luca Gotti. We'll see how long he sticks around. I feel like he's been great before at Udinese, but that didn't seem to matter too much anyway. Move next to Genoa. And I'm very curious because they were really good last year. Probably my favorite team in Serie A because they have a griffin, my name, on their logo. They start at home with Inter, but I guess if you're going to play Inter, maybe it's better to do it at home. Alberto Gilardino, still around, appointed December 6, 2022. Thought they might lose him, but the manager has stuck. They've made 41 million euros. They've spent 32. So that's saying something, especially for a club valued at 138 million euros, 45 million euros more than Lecce. And you could argue that Genoa and Salernitana used to be, excuse me, not Salernitana, Genoa and Sampdoria, big rivals in the Genova region. Big deal. But we'll see what that all looks like because I don't see Sampdoria in the league. The Derby della Lanterna not happening for a little while, it seems. Departures, Matteo Retegui, Italian international, young striker, gone center forward to Atalanta. Josep Martinez, goalkeeper, gone to Inter. Kevin Yeboah, gone to, looks like somewhere in MLS, Minnesota, maybe. Yes, Minnesota United. Sylvan Hefty for 1.2 million euros, a lot of money for Hamburg to put out. And then George Pushkash, he's gone somewhere, but hasn't lived up to his name. In terms of arrivals, bought Vitinha from Olympique de Marseille for 16 million euros. That's a lot. Cody de Winter from Juve, they bought him back for 8 million euros, or at least he's been on loan other places. Kind of surprised Juve moved on from him. Alessandro Zanoli on loan from Napoli. Brooke Norton-Cuffy from Arsenal. Don't know him. Morten Torsby, center midfielder from Union Berlin. It's been all over Italy and other places as well. So there's a lot of names to know here. I really liked them last year. I thought they were a very good team. Junior Macias coming in, I think, from AC Milan. I'm wearing their kit right now. And I really like the Vitinha signing. We'll see what he can deliver. Most important for me is to keep Albert Gudmundsson worth 30 million euros. Let's see if they can keep him. Redigui, certainly a much easier sell than him. And we'll see what happens if there are more deals that are done. But for how much they spent, maybe they do keep players and try to climb up that league table. In terms of relegation, Genoa 8-1 odds to be relegated. That's pretty big odds for them. Is there a number that I can find? I don't know that they're good enough to finish in a top 4 position, to be frank, but Genoa 20-1 odds to finish top 4. I probably don't see it, but if there was a top half number, that might be something I'd be interested in. We'll move next to Udinese. They're worth about 150 million euros. It's about 3 times as much as Empoli, Venezia at the bottom. Not exactly, but close. And then Udinese, they were really bad at scoring goals last year and had a pretty good finish to the season. They start on the road to Bologna, which might not be the worst place to start. In terms of their manager, Costa Runjaic, don't even know how to pronounce that, but a German has come in July 1st. They have about spent the same amount that they sold, 19 million euros, going one way, 90.6, and expenditures a little bit more. Martins has left winger for 10 million euros. Wallace has gone, defensive midfielder, for 8. And looking like back to Brazil, Roberto Pereira gone in a free transfer. Massina gone for 1 million euros, a center back to Torino. But I think he was already there. In terms of arrivals, Lorenzo Luca, center forward from Pisa for 8 million euros. Maybe that's where they got some of the money to spend. Damian Pizarro, he is coming in for 3.5 million euros from CSD Colo Colo. Don't know them. Jurgen Eckelenkamp, who's been all over the German Bundesliga and was most recently at Anderlecht in Belgium. Alexis Sanchez in on a free transfer. Interesting. Jesper Karlstrom, 2 million euros. So there's been some movement here, clearly, from like Poznan. We'll see what that, I guess, turns into. They still have a lot of players we know from before. We'll see if Gerard Deulofeu can get healthy off a knee surgery, but we'll see when that happens. Lorenzo Luca is there, who I just mentioned. Eckelenkamp, 10 position, only worth 4.5 million euros. Wow, the sun has not risen for him just yet. But this is a team. I mean, there's some talent here, of course. They're usually known as a feeding ground for Watford in England, but we'll see what they turn into, I guess, this year. I wonder if Okoye will keep the job over Silvestri. It looks like it because he's worth about 4 times in market value. So that's a good sign. Udinese to be relegated. It's probably relevant to talk about. 3.5 to 1. So pretty low on that list, potentially to get relegated. They are currently 7th most likely, which is not crazy, but saying something. Moving next to Torino, worth 172, so 1.75 to whatever, 172 million euros. That's the easiest way to put it. And we're actually climbing to the top half by far of the table right now. But Torino, I believe, had moved on from Juric, their manager, which is disappointing because he was great for unders. Oh my gosh. Paolo Vanoli coming in, new manager as of July 1st. They have brought in nearly 36.5 million euros. They've spent 17. Looks like their top departures, Buongiorno to Napoli, who was, I thought, going to switch sides in Torino and move to Juventus, but that did not happen. Also, Ricardo Rodriguez left back in from Real Betis. Kofi Gigi has gone center back, but doesn't have a club yet. In terms of what they have brought in, Shea Adams, a free transfer, interesting move there. We'll see if that turns into. Duvan Zapata was completed last season from Atalanta. Saul Coco from Las Palmas. Nice center back, 7.5 million euros. I like that a lot. Messina at center back also was around last season. I feel like they've sold a really good young center back who's going to be hard to replace, but Saul Coco might be the next one. And I'm surprised for only 7.5 million euros from La Liga side. Maybe there's more money in Italy than there is in Spain, which might speak to a lot of the expenditures in this league. We'll see what Zapata does. Shea Adams, no idea what that'll look like in Italy, but there's a lot of talent here. I really liked what they've done, and they're a team I like to back, especially at home. 16-1 to be relegated. That's pretty high. To finish in a top 4 finish, plus 175. Wow. It's not really a great price. I'll put it that way. Yikes. But if you want to sign up to have an account at Bet Online or SportsBetting.ag. Not a great advertisement there, but if you don't have an account there, you should get one. It's the best place for, especially if you play Major League Baseball, best spot for those type of numbers. Get the best juice, 10 cents on reasonably priced home underdogs or favorites or whatever. That's, I think, the best spot to be. And you'll get some free money, free cash if you follow the links in the podcast description, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on YouTube. Well, next move to Lazio. They are pretty far down this list. Wow, but worth 225 million euros. We'll see what happens with Immobile after doing nothing all season. Marco Baroni, a well-known manager coming in to run their squad. They spent about 12 million euros more than they bought, big on each side. Let Daichi Kamada go to Crystal Palace to reunite with Oliver Glasner. Luis Alberto has left for probably somewhere in Saudi for 10.5 million euros. Luis Massimiano to Almeria. I'm surprised they made that deal, getting relegated, but it probably was already on the books for 8.1 million euros. Felipe Anderson back to Brazil on a free transfer to Cagliari to Parma on loan right now because I guess he couldn't fit into the squad. What they have brought in, Matteo Guendouzi from Olympique de Marseille for 13 million euros was there last year. Nuno Tavares on loan from Arsenal after he's been, I think, loaned out other places as well. Noslin for 9 million euros or so from Hellas Verona. Chauna from Salernitana for 10 million euros. And Gaetano Castrovilli, kind of rarely used midfielder from Fiorentina, but definitely has goals in him. He's arrived as well. So Lazio have done a lot to bring in new players. I don't see, I guess, Ciro Immobile has gone. Castellaно's still there. That's important. I'm very curious to see what this team looks like with what seems like very low expectations compared to where they've been in the past, especially a second place finish in Serie A in 2023. Providel has won that goalkeeper job, deserves it, I think. And we'll see. I kind of like the lower valuation, potentially lower expectations for this club. In terms of Lazio to finish top 4, they are plus 650. That is a lot higher than Torino, which is very surprising to me. I don't really get that, I got to say. We'll move next to Bologna, who are going to be in Champions League after an incredible year last year, despite losing everything they have, basically. Yikes, that's not great. I'm very worried about them potentially being at the relegation side. It's probably gonna be very, very 25-1 odds, huge number, but bear with me because you're going to hear what has happened to their club. So they have brought in Vincenzo Italiano, who's done very well previously, and I think was at Fiorentina. That's a good move for them. Appointed June 2024, so that's pretty soon after the season ended. They brought in 98 million euros in sales. They've spent 49, so that is a pretty big gap. The departure is Xerxes, center forward, more like a 10 attacking player for sure. He's moved to Manchester United for 42.5 million euros. Riccardo Calafiori, one of the, I think, heartthrobs of Italy at the Euros, so it was pretty disappointing. He was a surprise starter at center back, plays left back as well, has moved to Arsenal. Marco Arnautovic for Inter Milan was already there. Raimondo on loan transfer to Venezia, and that's not really that much more. So 3 big sales, only 2 were on the team last year, so maybe not as bad as it looks. How to fill those gaps. In comes Thijs de Linga from Toulouse, great goal scorer, 15 million euros. I think he will do very, very well, and I'm very interested in seeing what he looks like for a top goal scorer for this club. Emil Holm €7 million coming in at right midfield. Nicola Cambiaghi from Atalanta for €10 million. Juan Miranda, formerly of Barcelona and also Real Betis, free transfer. Martin Ehrlich, a center back from Sassuolo, certainly has some mistakes in him. We'll see how that all looks. I think the big question is how they perform without Thiago Motta, in terms of where they're going to score their goals. And Ndoye is still there. That might be the big question. So it's going to fall on Dalinga, it looks like. I feel like they've lost other players that I'm not thinking of as we speak. Remo Freuler still in there. That's important. Abishur hurt. El Azuzi, certainly known from, I think, the Olympics with Morocco this summer. Stefan Posch played great at right back last year. I think the big question is how they're going to form, considering all they've lost. Lukumi, who I believe got hurt in the opener for Colombia in the Copa America, and then Skorupski sticking around for goalkeeper Pole, probably is helpful and will mean something for them, this team. Center back looks like it's gotten pretty weak compared to what they were with losing Calafiori, though he was honestly playing left back for a lot of last season. So maybe this is not as bad as it looks. I think the 25-1 to be relegated, probably not likely, but Champions League, I think, will be a problem for a top four finish. They're 11-1 to finish there, and I don't think they will do it. Move next to Fiorentina, worth over €250 million. They are next up on our list. They start on the road at Parma. Looks like Raffaele Palladino, former manager of Monza, has come into Fiorentina. I really like that move. He was great there and outperformed any expectations 2 years in a row. And I think surprised to stay up the first year, and I think a surprise again the second. Transfer record. He has spent €41.5 million and only brought in 17.6. Wow, I'm surprised to see Fiorentina spending like that, but good for them. Departures, they lost Nikola Milinkovic, who was not really playing all the time. Center back has moved to Nottingham Forest. Mbala Nzola has moved to Lens. Gaetano Casavilli to Lazio. Alfred Duncan to Venezia. Giacomo Bonaventura is gone as well. All free or loans, and I don't know that those were big time players. In from Monza as well with the manager Andrea Copani, loan for €4 million. Marin Pogacic, as I already mentioned, from Lecce. Moise Kean from Juventus for €13 million. Amir Richardson from Stade de Reims in Ligue 1 for €9 million. And then from Boca Juniors, Nicolas Valentini, center back as well. Seems like they sold a center back, brought two in, one for a free transfer from Boca Juniors will be interesting. And then a lot of the other, I guess, moves they made are in the attack. I like it. I feel like I'm very excited to see what Raffaele Palladino can do with more talent. Fiorentina currently 10-1 odds to finish in the top four finish. That seems interesting to me, but let's go Serie A 2024 standings, because that could be, let's be 23-24, whatever. Doing it live. Fiorentina, not in Europe. Finished 8th place last year. Interesante. Muy interesante, señor. All right. So in terms of the rest of the squad, Nico Gonzalez still there. Worth €35 million. That's a name I want to see if he's potentially going to get sold. Haven't seen it yet. Until it does, I'm pretending he's still around. In terms of rumors, is that listed anywhere here? Let's see. Let's find some rumors. No rumors. Okay. Well, that's something I want to look at because he's so important. Great Argentine, and really hasn't ever been that dominant, but we saw it at Stuttgart. I did, and I believe in him at Fiorentina as well. I like Richardson signing, only 22, worth €6 million. Sofian Amrabat back on loan, or his loan ended with Manchester United. We'll see what he does. Was so good in the World Cup, but we'll see if that continues. Biragi, captain, still there at left back. Pogacic coming in to play center back with Martinez Quarta, Ranieri, more pace guys. I think size could be a question for them, especially not having Milinkovic. Maybe that's what they're looking for, because Fiorentina and new manager will be playing a very aggressive way. David De Gea coming in as well, from no club team to compete with Christensen and Terracciano. I wonder who will move on. And this team looks good. I'm actually very excited about Fiorentina the more I'm looking at it right now. Moving next to Roma, they're worth an incredible €332 million. Wow, gigantic. And that's probably going to be one of the big teams that Fiorentina will fight for potential top four position. Roma, they have got rid of Jose Mourinho, of course. Still have Daniele Di whatever the heck. What did I click on that did not load correctly? Let's see how I can fix my error like ASAP. Where the heck is this squad? Okay. Overview. Come on, baby. All right. So Daniele De Rossi is still around. Missed him getting the replacement for Mourinho and then scored a million goals, completely changed around what Roma were doing. Departures, Osem Awar for 12 million euros, but he didn't really take on, hasn't for a long time. Andrea Belotti gone as well to Como. Spinazzola gone to Napoli. Pagano, don't know. Solbakken gone on loan to Empoli. They have spent 89 million euros. Wow. They brought in only 17 million euros. That's a lot of expenditures. Here's what they bought. Artem Dovbyk, big goal scorer for Girona in Spain. Matias Soule from Juventus, who's on loan out at Frosinone for 26 million euros. Enzo Lefebvre, center midfielder from Stade Rennais, previously of Lorient, for 23. Angelino, 5.2 million, though he was playing for Roma last season. Samuel Dahl, I don't know that name, and I don't know the club. Left back, 4.3 million euros from Djurgårdens IF, which I think is in Sweden. I'm very curious to see how much Paulo Dybala plays. Tammy Abraham's still there. Started playing towards the end of last season, recovering from a knee injury. If they could get him into what he was doing at Chelsea, that would be great. But Dovbyk is probably playing in front of him. In terms of other players, El Shaarawy is always going to play an important role. Pellegrini, great midfielder if they can keep him healthy, captain as well. I like Lefebvre center back, central midfield. Paredes as well, defensive midfielder. Cristante. I mean, this team is deep. There's a lot of good players here. We'll see what that turns into. But Svilar looks like he's taken over the goalkeeping position. It's probably deserved. Atalanta next on the list, 433.6 million euros. Pretty specific there. My bad, but that's a lot, worth a lot. The Europa League champions that just played a pretty tight game, I thought, against Real Madrid. Just not everything ended well for them, unfortunately. After a really good, what felt like 55 minutes, they did not play the last 10 so well whatsoever. So in terms of, and they start on the road at Lecce, it's going to be a tough place to play. Gasparini, can't question that manager. He's awesome. They have brought in 56 million euros and spent 70. So that's surprising. We'll see who else gets sold. They brought in Caleb Okoli, center back from Leicester City. Alexei Maranchuk from Atalanta, actually. Atlanta. Wow. United. Wow. Atlanta to Atalanta. Well, that could not have been done more perfectly, I don't think. 12 million euros there. Nicolo Cambiaghi from Bologna, though I think they then loaned him out. Duvan Zapata, or no, he was sold to Bologna. Okay, there we go. Duvan Zapata was sold during last season to Torino. Nadir Zortea to Cagliari. Just probably one of those guys that wouldn't find time to play. They finished the deal of Charles de Ketelaere from Milan, the kit that I'm wearing. Matteo Retegui, already mentioned. Nicola Zaniolo on loan for Galatasaray after he tried to force moves all over the place. 12 million euros on Ben Godfrey. Interesting, though he was playing attacking center back, right back, or whatever in the Super Cup. Very interesting. And then Sulemana for 7.5 million euros from Cagliari as well. They brought in. This team's going to be awesome. They're going to crush teams. I wonder the impact of Scamacca's injury, cruciate ligament tear, not back until 2025, and that seems like it might be soon. Zaniolo's got an injury flag. I mean, this squad's going to be awesome. We'll see when everyone gets healthy, but they will be good and they will be scary. And I don't think I want too much to do with potentially fighting them. Might as well go back to the top four finishes. Atalanta plus 150, Roma plus 175. Fairly decent long shots, I guess, but or not long shots, very, very low price. I think you'd want a long shot rather than tying up money for an entire season just for that. All right, next we'll go to Napoli, 449 million euros. That is huge. Then we go to Juventus, Milan, and Inter for the last three. It's now past 2 a.m. I'm just never going to sleep in this world, I guess. Say la vie. Okay, Napoli, minus 200. So 1 to 2 odds to finish top four. That's pretty aggressive considering how bad they were last year. But in comes Antonio Conte and everything changes. He has spent 47 million euros, only returned and sold 9 million euros. So they've spent a fair amount of money. Zielinski gone to Inter Milan. Not a very well kept secret. Jesper Lindstrom on loan, 2 million euros to Everton. Didn't really take on. Nathan on loan to Real Betis. Leo Ostigard sold to Rennes in France. Alessandro Zanoli on loan to Genoa. In terms of arrivals, they spent 35 million euros on Buongiorno. Great grab, it looks like there. Rafa Marin is coming in from Alaves, but parent club was on loan at Alaves last season in Spain. Real Madrid sold him. And then they brought in Spinazzola, free transfer. Probably knows Conte very well from his time with the national team and, of course, all over Italy. Big questions are they're going to keep Victor Osimhen, 100 million euros. Thought he was going to PSG. That has not happened yet. Raspadori, Ingonge. I think there's some questions about the front for these two teams. I gotta say, I don't know where the goals come from. Conte, we know, is going to play a defensive brand and try to spring out on counterattacks. That might work very well. Foloruncho has come back from a loan with Ellis Verona. That's a big deal. Kvaratskhelia still hasn't done much over the time, but maybe under Conte, he will turn into something again that look he was turning into. There's a lot that's still here. The defense has improved. I feel like this looks like a very serious under team. And they start on the road at Verona, who are going to probably have to play a very safe way, especially at home, even with a big crowd. That's probably an under, I got to say, if I'd ever thought about one. Napoli, again, 1 to 2 odds to finish in the top 4. Don't know if they have enough goals for that. That's my big question. AC Milan minus 220 to finish in the top 4, but Champions League spot. But actually, they are second most transfer value. So move to Juventus, 1 to 3 odds. So minus 300 US dollars win you 100 for them to finish top 4, and they probably are worth a look at to win this whole thing. Juve plus 350. Decent odds for Juve. A lot of people picked them last year. Didn't really work out. But in terms of what they are this year, Thiago Motta coming in from Bologna. They were awesome. They defended very well. Expect a similar brand, I would expect, and probably a lot of unders to cash for Juventus this season. They've spent 89.5 million euros. They brought in 91, so that's a good deal for them. Departures, Rabiot, gone. Sule, gone to Roma. Huijsen gone to Bournemouth. Samuel Illing Jr. to Aston Villa, and kind of like a trade. Moise Kean to Fiorentina. They spent 51.5 million euros on Douglas Luiz. That's going to be a very important signing, of course. Kefren Turam, very young player, 21 million euros or so from Nice. Di Gregorio to potentially take the job from Wojciech Szczesny in goalkeeper for 4.5 million euro loan fee. I'm sure they're going to buy afterwards. Juan Cabal in from Ellis Verona. I mean, there's a lot of good players coming in. And we'll see exactly how Motta handles the pressure. Everyone hates Juventus, and we'll see what happens with Chiesa. That's another important piece. I'm tempted by the plus money on them to win this whole thing, but Inter are very good, and I want to make sure that is known. I don't really want to fade Inter this year, I gotta say. Speaking of Milan, they are worth 598 million euros, 7 to 1 odds to win Serie A, and that number has not changed in the last month. In order to finish top 4, let's see. Milan are minus 220. The Juventus 1 to 3, so are minus 300. As for the squad, there's some changes. Pioli gone. In comes Paulo Fonseca, very aggressive offensive manager, formerly at Roma. Had a lot of success at Lille, but we'll see what kind of how it looks in Milan. Where there's a lot of expectations. They've spent 51.7 million euros. Only returned 28.5 for sales. A lot of that is to Ketelare, who's already gone, not playing with them last season. So they haven't lost a lot. Krunic is gone to Galatasaray in Turkey. Not a huge loss there. Some loan players who are already gone previously, Colombo and Romero. We'll see if they're missed. They spent 18 million euros bringing in Pavlovic, Rahinha Pavlovic from Red Bull Salzburg, played for Serbia in the Euros. Emerson Royale coming in for 15 million euros. That's interesting. He played a fair amount for Tottenham, but don't remember how much he was playing under Ange Postecoglou. Alvaro Morata coming in. Interesting after his Juventus days, but I guess that's not a huge rival. Coming in from Atletico Madrid for 13 million euros. Interesting. Spaniards back in Italy. Giancarlo Simic is, I guess he's been then sold. So I don't know how Europe didn't get sold, but there's more to that. And then Alex Jimenez coming in from Real Madrid for 5 million euros, left back. I don't know how much he's going to play. I've never heard that guy. With that said, Paulo Fonseca going to play very aggressively on the front foot. There's a lot of respect for Juve compared to Milan, especially in the squad values. But as I wear a Milan kit, again, Cristiano Pulisic. Of course, the match I went to at San Siro, he got subbed off in the first half after a red card to center back. But that's what you do when Malik Tall was playing. I think Morata is going to be great. Certainly filling in for Giroud, who's gone to Los Angeles here in the United States. I like seeing Okafor as well. We'll see how much he plays. Rafael Leao, still wonder when he's going to get sold, but didn't really have a great Euros. We'll see what that turns into. Pobega in central midfield is good. Musa as well. I mean, there's a lot of good players in this team, a lot of depth, and they should be good. I think the big question is how do they defend, especially with a very aggressive attacking. I think Teo Hernandez is probably going to be scoring a ton of goals. Probably bringing Emerson Royale is a good offensive player as well, from Tottenham, formerly Real Betis. Yeah, there's going to be some goals in this team. And Mike Maignan is an awesome goalkeeper, so he will certainly keep goals out. I'm curious to see what happens with them, and probably don't want to play many unders with Paulo Fonseca involved. And last but not least, Inter Milan worth 681 million euros, about 83 million more than Milan, 160 more than Juventus, according to Transfer Market, 230 more than Napoli. And I don't feel like listing this anymore. They are favorites to win at minus 145. That has come down. Looks like about 9.5% from when I first tracked this. So some other teams are getting bet, which I'll go over a little bit later. But in terms of their squad and what has changed, they start on the road at Genoa. I think I've already said on this pod. Inzaghi's still there. He's been great. I think it's been awesome taking over from Conte, playing the same way, and then still doing really well with it. Honestly, still feel like they should have won the Champions League based on outplaying Manchester City, but c'est la vie. Weird to say that, I guess, in a AC Milan kit, but I do have Inter Milan gear as well for a future episode. I guess I could have worn that for this one. Anyway, they have spent 63.5 million euros. They have sold 12.3. So they've spent 51 million euros. That's a lot. In terms of what they lost, Valentin Carboni, attacking midfielder, to Marseille for 1 million euros on loan. Lucien Agume to Sevilla for 4 million euros. And then other names that don't matter. What they've brought in is Fratesi, who was already bought, and I guess is on loan. This is official buy, 20 million euros, comes on the pitch, usually doesn't start, but scores goals and is terrifying. Zielinski, that was a huge free transfer to get from Napoli with his contract expiring. Augusto already done. Joseph Martinez, who started for Genoa last year. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. Also, free transfer of the Iranian Mehdi Taremi. We'll see how that does. Hopefully no second yellows, because he crushed me in a Champions League match doing that. But this team's going to be great. They're so solid. It's really hard to trust someone knocking them out. I don't think the Milan defense will be good enough to beat Inter. Juve, I think there's so many moving pieces. We'll see really how Thiago Motta takes over, especially with the defensive side. I think you need to outscore Inter, and I don't think that'll happen against the weaker teams in this league. So Lautaro Martinez is probably the scariest player in this league. That has not changed. Dumfries had a great summer as well. We'll see I guess what Çalhanoğlu scores every penalty, it seems. We'll see how that all works, and certainly looks scary for Jan Sommer at 35, plus with Josep Martinez there, worth now 8 million euros compared to Jan Sommer's 5. There are some good players in this team, and all over, and they've got plenty of skill. So that is the, I guess, off-season transfer market via transfermarket.us, it looks like, for an English version. Thank you to them. Hopefully that it was somewhat insightful, as I need to prepare myself to do an ultimate best bet coming into the show with futures. But before I get there, I need to go through and just, I guess I'll shout out some lines, movements, specifically for odds to win Serie A in 2024, 2025. Inter, like I said, down 9.5%, 9.38 to be exact, from minus 160, minus 145. Money has been spread to Juventus, down from plus 400, so 4-1 odds, to 3.5-1. That's down about 12.5%. Looks like Napoli have fallen from 750 to plus 650 for a 13% drop, and Atalanta have climbed from 20 to 22-1. 20-1 to 22-1. 10% increase there. In terms of other movement, don't see it. Odds win Italy without Inter. Juve plus 175, Milan plus 250, Napoli plus 350, and Atalanta 900. Don't really love many of those, I got to say. Relegation, Venezia minus 125. Empoli, Venezia are newly promoted. Empoli barely stayed up last season, minus 115. Verona plus 125, who had a miraculous come from behind. They looked dead for a long time, but honestly, good play kept them up. Cagliari plus 130 to be relegated. They've done a fair amount of business. I'm kind of surprised. Parma, newly promoted. They're plus 175. That does seem interesting to me, though they were the winners of Serie B last season. Plus 175, historic club, and worth a fair amount of money. Lecce plus 250, Udinese plus 350, Monza 600, and then we get to another newly promoted Lake Como, or just Como in general, Como FC, plus 650, Como 1907, 650, plus 650 for a newly promoted side that did not win Serie B to be relegated. Thanks to a lot of money, I guess. But that's very, very interesting. Top four finish, Milan minus 2,000, or Inter Milan, excuse me, minus 2,000. So $2,000 to win 100. Not worth it. Juventus minus 300, 3-1, 1-3 odds on. Milan minus 220, Napoli minus 200. And then you move to some plus money teams with Atalanta plus 150. Always worried about sales from them. Roma plus 175. Certainly a new way to play. I guess there's some possibilities that it's a very, very aggressive price, it seems to me, for a new manager to come in. Or I guess De Rossi was there middle of last season. They've spent a lot of money, so that says something. How well do they spend is the biggest question. Does Dovbyk really make a big difference when he's not playing with another fellow Ukrainian like he did at Girona? Was it really Girona, the Manchester City minor league squad that made it, or was it him, especially if they're very, very quiet Euros? Plus 175, also matching up with Torino. That seems like a misprint to me. Lazio plus 650 looks very interesting to finish top four, though they've certainly fallen off and kind of fallen out. Another question, they're in the Conference League as well, which is very, very tough. Fiorentina, 10-1 odds. It's a big, big price to potentially finish in the top four. It's a long shot, but honestly, it feels like it's not a crazy idea to potentially get somewhere in there, giving them 9% odds or something like that. It seems like a lot. Bologna 1,100 after plus 11-1 odds after finishing in the top five to get in the Champions League last season. Big question on how they'll balance. They haven't lost as much as they thought they would, but transfer market has not closed just yet. Move next to Genoa 20-1, Monza 20-1. Those are interesting, and we'll see what happens with those movements and such as we have a couple days until the season begins. With all that done, it is time for the ultimate best bet. I don't know when I'm going to put all these out, I got to say, but got to do it before the season starts, or as the season starts, I guess, is that plan. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. I didn't do this one live because I'm not sure it really mattered at the wee hours, 2:21 local time in Dallas. God, I need to sleep. But it's time for an ultimate best bet. So we might as well get into it. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot for all my plays, leans across all sports. The NFL season starting very soon, college football as well. Of course, these soccer, football, actual football, European football. Baseball season is rolling. That's going to turn up soon, and it's a great run. Check it out over there if you could. Plenty of other podcasts coming out of Betting the Pitch. Leave a 5-star review, would be huge for the search rankings. But I think I'm too tired. I think it's time for me to get into it, and might as well just do it right now. Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet from the Serie A, Italian Serie A preview episode for this 2024-2025 season. Went through each of the teams, going through the entire list of transfers, how much they spent, how much they sold, new managers that have come in, and there are a lot all over the place. My ultimate best bet will feature one of those. If you're not following me on Patreon, do it. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot for all my plays, leans, write-ups across all sports. Download the application, turn on notifications, and you will see every play as soon as I lock them in. For my best bet in this episode, I'm going to go with Fiorentina to finish top four. They don't have European commitments. That's a big deal. I think they're going to do really, really well this season with a new manager who I really loved at Monza. They spent a lot of money in a great way. They have not had the success of getting over that hump. It's been a problem in the past, but I think they do that this season. Take Fiorentina 10-1 odds, only giving 9% chance to finish in the top 4 of Serie A in 2024, 2025. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. I will talk to you all very soon. Still have a Bundesliga episode coming. I'm going to try to do an episode tomorrow morning before the Friday card begins.